consciousness. Hi folks, welcome to my off-grid humble homestead in the forest on this glorious day. I know I keep saying to you on this glorious day, but regardless of if it's a snowstorm or a beautiful blue sky, but it really is a glorious day, especially now that we're mid-March and the light is at the end of the tunnel, and it's a little bit of a breeze, and you see no yellow jacket today. You'll be happy to see. And but the snow is still here. I'm not sure if you can get that on the side, but anyway. But today I wanted to talk to you about a topic that that's always on my mind, or it's been on my mind for a few decades, and that is, like I said, for a few decades now, we've been talking. There've been people that were vegetarian, and then recent, maybe 15 years ago or so, veganism, and I honestly, it's I don't know how to put a question without offending people. I should have a PR person here. I'm struggling here. I should have written this down, or rehearsed it or something. But that's why you're here. You're here for raw footage. So I would really, personally, I would like to retire bovine and beef and cattle altogether, for milk, for cheese, for meat. And even some car manufacturers are now making their interiors out of recycled plastic and alternative to leather, for instance. And that's nice too, I guess. But way back, maybe 3 decades ago, when there was vegetarianism and that, people was so passionate about harming the animals and killing animals and whatever. But then I would see the same people wearing leather belts or jackets or boots or purses or handbags or whatever. And I'm the black and white, as black and white that I am, and people call me that, and rightfully. And I, as black and whites go, if I were to be so passionate about animal rights and in being humane, treated with whatever, then I also wouldn't be wearing anything to do that was made out of animals. Like even a snowshoe is made out of the webbing, not the wooden loop. You know what I mean? What you stand on. The old ones used to be made out of sinew, and they still probably are. Some nations probably, First Nations probably make them out of that. And you still find old ones that are perfectly usable. But my point is that there's some animals parts there. And vegans are even like another whole step higher. I'm not judging, because some of you know, and I even have the recipes to show it. I'm not a carnivore. I'm not an omnivore, but I'm an opportunivore. Like, let's see what animals. Bears, for instance, eat meat when they find it, when they have access to it, when they're absolutely hungry and they have to go. That's all there is. But they also eat a lot of berries. They also eat a lot of whatever that they fruit, apples here, and so. I think as long as we eat whatever, as long as it's with respect, as long as with understanding that something is giving its life to us, I think that's acceptable for me, to me. And well, look, there are lots of animals that pretty much only eat meat, like the apex predators, perhaps even birds of prey. And so, if we're going to be judging other humans for eating meat in whatever quantity, we should also kind of look and see what the nature's already doing that. And we're just an animal like another animal. This isn't an argument for eating meat or carnivores or anything. I'm just talking about consuming meat with respect, and maybe even not a lot. I used to eat a lot more meat, but now gradually I've been reduced. I reduced it. It's been reduced to whatever, to maybe it went from whatever it was to maybe 3 times a week, then twice a week, then once a week, and now could be once a month. And I don't miss it. But when I eat it, I enjoy it. I don't eat it with guilt. And I think that's okay. Now, the reason why I title this video Consciousness, or Consciousness with a question mark, is that more and more we hear that I'm hearing, even though I'm not on social media, I'm hearing from documentaries or whatever that we're realizing, or the thinking is that plants also have consciousness. Now, I get that. I believe that. I really think that is true, because to me, anything that's living, any living thing probably has consciousness. Now, because the arrogant beings that we are, we think that if we can't find the vocabulary or whatever parts of our brain that can attach something to something else, then we're detached from it. What I'm not good at explaining. I'll put it this way: if we see a basil plant, doesn't have a heart, doesn't have a brain, so it's not conscious. Well, it does have a circulatory system like us. I mean, if you look at any leaf of any plant, doesn't even have to be basil. I don't know why I said basil. One of my favorite plants. But if you look on the back of any leaf, wherever you are now, after this video, go have a look. Look, maybe pause it now. Go look at the back of a leaf. First of all, you'll see a vein, a single vein, like a stem, bringing up the water and then goes to the branches, and then the branches go into the stem of the branch, it goes into a leaf. And if you look at the back of the leaf, you'll see that veins get smaller and smaller to the capillaries. Well, that's a circulatory system right there, just like you have one, and I have one, and all the other beings have one. And they're alive. They're alive because if you don't water them, if the soil doesn't have enough nutrients, they'll die. You know that. Well, in order for it to die, it must have been alive at some point. So if it's alive, why shouldn't it have consciousness? Many plants, it's just because we can't put words to it, connecting it to us somehow, we detach from it. Plants that grow high up in the Andes or Tibet or wherever, where bees are rare, they only, first of all, they don't raise their stamen in the cold because they don't want to protect it. They want the chances of it getting pollinated. They want to protect the very core of it. So they close it, or they maybe raise it. Every time a bee comes, they count the number of, perhaps the intervals between the times that bees or beneficial insects, if they're very rare even over there, visit, and then they raise their stamen. And then otherwise they hold it back so it's protected. from the wind or whatever, rain or whatever cold. And I mean, I don't know how we can say that that's not consciousness. That's not, the thing is, doesn't know, doesn't have any feelings, it doesn't care about any cold or heat, just like we do. Um, um, in fact, in one of my videos, I mentioned that every time we harvest some, we should, whatever that you're harvesting, you should give a bit of a. If this is your first video you're watching, but go back and watch my other ones. Every time I mention how I can, the videos on how you can make your comfrey composted tea or stinging nettle composted tea. Comfrey composted tea is for um, um, putting more nutrients in the soil for plants that are fruiting plants like tomatoes and uh, any fruiting plants or just maybe even some fruits or shrubs. Whereas comfrey nettle tea is for leafy, like a lettuce and basil I just mentioned, or cilantro, things that don't have fruits, but it's the leaf of them that we consume. Nonetheless, I'm talking about replenishing the soil so it can not die, or it can regenerate itself and grow again. So that's like a sort of a consciousness on our part to be helping them and giving something to them for what we take away from them. And so I don't understand how, if folks that are vegetarian and vegan don't see, because they have to eat something, right? They're not breatharians. I don't know if you've ever heard this term. Somebody came here 7 years ago or so and said that she was a breatharian, and I didn't understand. Hadn't heard the term before, but anyway, it doesn't matter. So you can't live on air alone. You need to have some sustenance of some sort. So in the case of some extreme vegetarians or vegans, which again, this is not a judgment thing. I'm black and white. I need to know, as you guys, some of you know me by now. I have a need to know everything, or as much as I can, or as much as my tiny brain can hold and remember. And this is one of them. I'm trying to understand what the thinking is behind someone when someone says, I don't eat live things like animals, but I'm totally okay with eating plants, which are also alive and have, I think, I don't mean feelings like feelings like how I would hurt your feelings, or if I were to punch you in the face, you would be hurt kind of feeling. But because, like I was saying earlier, because we can't verbalize it or the way that we consider something to be having feelings, and so we think, well, plants don't have that, so they don't have any feelings. I can eat plants, but I won't eat animals. To me, they're the same. And like I explained, there are even animals out there who do eat plants, and then animals who out there that only eat meat. And I believe, wrongly, rightly, mostly, that animals are probably, perhaps, possibly, unless someone can prove me wrong, I believe that they're probably a higher form of beings, because they don't necessarily have rage, they don't necessarily have judgment, they don't necessarily have hatred for one another, their own species or another species. They might, and when the male in particular, that even them that are perhaps fighting over territory or a herd or whatever, they don't necessarily, I know some do, but they don't necessarily fight to death. Some just rub their antlers, some make noises, some push and pull and charge at each other, but rarely do they go at it to death. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like trying to have a form of territory, and maybe one was encroaching on one's territory and kind of had it coming in a way. But my point is that if you are to learn from nature, that we should really look at it all the way, not cherry pick what makes sense. I'm against trophy hunting. I'm against fishing, sports fishing, sports hunting. I'm against anything like that. I don't, I know what I mean. But if we can, like the First Nations and whatever country you're in, there were people there before you, perhaps, that when they hunt an animal or take an animal's life, they give thanks, and they use pretty much every part of that animal, which also another sign of respect, by saying, thank you for doing this, and I'm not going to discard. I'm just going to just keep the best parts and then just discard the rest with much disregard. Now, a part of that argument could be that, well, something else will eat whatever they're disregarding is true, but the people or anyone that just eats with the shark fins, that kind of thing, that's horrible. But they're not, when they're releasing the rest of the shark into the water for it to drown or die or whatever, they're not thinking, something else will consume the rest of that. They're not. They're just like, pretty much most of the time, they're with little respect, much disrespect, in fact. So, sort of like when I have a tree that's not dead standing, but it's like sort of leaning, maybe about to fall or encroaching on another tree, and if you can see behind me, there are many trees. Whatever that's in your shot, I don't know what's in your shot. I don't have the screen. A good 50% of what the trees that you can see behind me should not be there because they're way too close to each other. So if I were to, so they're healthy, they're standing, they're kind of making it difficult for one or two of them to really get big. But if I were to bring, call thinning, if I were to thin what's behind me, which is really representation of this whole 44 acres, I wouldn't feel bad, because it's not like I would take that tree and, I don't know, pick it up and go and dump it somewhere. I would use whatever part of it I can for firewood, for heating the house, or when I did a meditation video, which I really enjoyed. I should do that again with you. I mentioned that I'm grateful for the warm house that we have, either by power of the sun, or the wood that the forest gave us to heat the house. Warmth is a wonderful thing. Even if you live somewhere hot, still to have heat is a wonderful thing. Really, it's a primal. It takes you back to 100,000 years ago, when we were in caves, and that fire, that just to look at that fire. If you've ever looked at a fire pit or a fireplace or whatever you have, just to look at it, it just makes you happy, and it just releases feel-good neurotransmitters. But then also to get the warmth of it. So that's one way. And another way is I've made structures. If you can see over there, I'm pointing, hoping you can see it. I've made like a little clubhouse out of reclaimed wood, and for posts and some beams and that, I'm using logs from right here, and our chicken coop. I've done a video, and I don't know if I posted it up or not. It's a short video. I'm not talking in it. I just in how we built it, what we used. So again, I'm paying homage, I'm paying respect to the tree, that I did something with it. Now, if you come inside the house one day, there might be some videos there. There's a lot of boards, obviously made out of wood, solid, not chipboards or laminated or whatever, solid wood. So that's another way of preserving that tree. it's in a different shape, that tree, but I've preserved it. And so same as this would be the same as if somebody were to uh, use a deer for everything. So the antlers they can make things out other than just hang it on the wall, which would still preserve it. I don't get that. People in the head, whatever on their walls. I don't those trophies. I don't get those. But to use that handle as a knife handle or a door handle or they can handle a lot of heat. You can even use it on your wood cook stove for the door of the oven. The velvet of them that they shed has medicinal qualities. So you're preserving, you're using every bit. There's sinew and whatever. If there's anything that you really can't use, now if you have chickens or a dog or whatever, then they can eat those parts. But even their organs are very pretty. I mean, if it's free roaming, not you don't use pesticides on your property, and they're there, and you consume them. It's okay. It's fine, and you can preserve some. Your family's happy. You have food in your tummy. You've said your thank you to Mother Nature, Mother Earth, and the animals, and then possibly you're controlling the growth of the population. What I mean is you're not going out and just randomly with I'm exaggerating, with a machine gun, just killing a whole bunch of things, just pepper spraying these bullets into the nature and killing as many as you want because maybe you just want the gallbladder of a bear or the claws of a bear, or maybe the pelt, the fur of a bear for it, and the rest you can care less about. You just leave there. So in short, nothing is short with me. I just want to, if you know, let me know. If I'm missing something, let me know. I want to learn. I honestly want to learn, and I'm hoping you can teach me. And that is that. Do you think that plants that we grow have consciousness also? That obviously we know that they're alive. No one's going to question that. But when we cut kale or whatever, which I just mentioned kale because that's a big thing right now. If you cut a leaf of a kale or whatever, many of them, does the plant hurt? Does the plant feel that, oh my God, what's happened? I've been, I don't want to say assaulted, but I've been hurt. What do I do? What do I do? What's happening? They're scrambling to, this is one reason why I like to put more nutrients back in the soil so if it can repair itself. I'm not trying to make this sound like a human-like thing. Oh my God, somebody shot me in the arm or whatever on the side. Now I have to patch it up and take whatever, in this case, herbal medication remedies to heal myself. I'm not trying to do it that way. I just think that it's more like that than no feelings and no consciousness, nothing. Don't worry about it. It's a plant. It doesn't have a heartbeat. It doesn't have a heart. Doesn't have a brain. You can eat as much plant as you want. Just stay away as long as you don't kill any animals. That's all I'm saying. And and let me know. And if yeah, I'll leave it at that, or else I'll just be rambling off for the rest of the day. Namaste.